Well, hello. So this week we're going to talk about followership. Followership, leadership, and followership go hand in hand. The Very often we think about leaders as 100% responsible for the success or failure of any organization or any goals of an organization. Well, the bottom line is, without good followers, followers actually consciously executing good quality followership is a big part of success of any organization. So followership is very important. And most followers don't even realize that they have a role to play other than to just do what they're told. Right. And actually that's a big part of the role they have to play. But they don't realize the importance that they play in the overall scheme of things when it comes to leaders and followers. So first off, let's talk about what followership is. Um, a textbook, or I wouldn't even say textbook, but a um, dictionary definition from Webster's dictionary is the capacity to follow a leader. That's basically it. The capacity to follow a leader. Now, you would just say, it's kind of passive. You don't even have to. You don't have to actively do anything to follow a leader, right? You're just there. Right? But there is a lot of things. There are a lot of action required and a lot of attention required to be an effective follower. Um, the art of followership is something that, if you master that in your careers, many of you are already well established in your careers. Some of you are at the beginning of your careers, and one of the biggest mistakes that people make in the beginning of the careers is they look as a way to advance themselves by beating their chest and making themselves look better than those around them, including their leaders. All right, I've seen this all the time in the military. All right, it's like I've actually have been told, given advice to, if you want to advance, make your lieutenant look like an idiot, and then the troops will look at you instead of him. That is the most horrible piece of advice I've ever received. Okay, um, to advance, to be good, we need to we need to be somebody that is noticed for positive reasons and not negative reasons. And I tell you right now, if you adapt that role that I just said about making your boss look bad so you can look good to those underneath, um, doing the little things is like when he or she's standing there next to you, you're like, yeah, yeah, do what she says or he says, and then they leave and they're like, don't worry, I got this. Don't worry about him or her. All right. That's about as horrible as he can be. All right. You will be noticed. All right. That is noticed because you think that those people that are underneath you uh, are more loyal to you than they are to him or her. You're sorely mistaken. Now, there might be some who are, but it's not a given. Okay. So that's a very horrible assumption. And in the American workplace, you see that a lot. All right. So avoid that. All right. I have always said, all right, well, not always, because to be honest with you, full disclosure, I did subscribe to that other thing for a while because I was told to. All right. Uh, and sometimes it's just natural when you disagree with a leader to assume the don't worry about him, I'm in charge kind of thing. And I've been there, right? I fell into that trap. But I've had some epiphanies over the years, and one of them I had was the best way to make yourself look good is to make your boss look good. Now, there are bosses out there that don't appreciate that will take credit for what you do, and a lot of things like that is horrible. But the bottom line, that doesn't release you from the responsibility to make them look good. But that is your job, okay, as a follower. And I believe in karma enough to know, and through experience, I know that eventually what comes around goes around, and you will be recognized. One of the stories I like to tell, and some of you might have heard, is when I I was after COVID. My former boss, I had opened a new restaurant by himself, and he had always had the idea that he wanted to bring me on to do sushi because he really liked my sushi. And when COVID kind of trashed everything, he had the opportunity to start over from scratch. So his company had only been, his restaurant had only been in business like a few months, but COVID tried to kill it. And but he was in business long enough to know that the initial employees that he bought the employees that he brought on board weren't always the best. Okay, so COVID gave him an opportunity to press a little reset button. And now, if there's one good thing that came out of COVID, a lot of places did that. People say, "Well, I didn't get my job back." Well, if somebody told you they didn't get their job back after COVID, you have to look at why, because COVID was a perfect opportunity to thin the herd. Okay, but anyway, getting back to my story, so he brought me on to start a sushi program on this seafood place. It was going to be just bar food seafood or bar food sushi to kind of boost the bar sales, and not going to be a major part of the menu, but just one or two items, two, three, special items, 2, 3 times a week. And that was going to be it. And so I did it, and he gave me carte blanche. The only thing he did is I told him what I wanted. He did the ordering, but everything else, I did it. I created the menus. I created the recipes. I created the names. Well, the general manager wanted to influence that. Some of them are goofy as all get out, but I digress. Anyway, so we're going pretty good. We're about 3 or 4 weeks into this, and then he had a sometimes silent, sometimes not so silent partner in the restaurant. So when I wasn't doing sushi, I worked on the line. So I'm working the line, and across the pass there, the window, I'm watching this conversation, and the other partner never talked to me. All right, I was just kind of there. So they're having this conversation, and the partner is telling the chef that hired me how wonderful the reviews were for sushi and how it was the best thing that he ever did, and he was great for doing it, and blah 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 blah. And I did it all. He had nothing to do with that other than he gave me my marching orders to come up with something. So I'm sitting there, and I start to get that feeling that we get, right? That he's taking credit. So I'm just watching it, and I'm working, and I stop, and he's out of the corner of his eye seeing that I stop, and he's got this little smile on it, and that was our relationship. But he's got this little smile, and he starts to laugh, and the other guy keeps on talking, and while the other guy's talking, he looks over to me, and he's like, "Yeah, you see how great my sushi program is?" And so the other guy noticed me for the first time. He looked at it, and they both looked at me, and I said, "Chef, thank you for the opportunity to make you look good." And after that, we had the best relationship. All right. Now, you don't always have that opportunity, but that is the attitude that I chose to take. All right. That I was given an opportunity, right? That my blood, sweat, and tears created something that made my boss stand out, that made the organization that I work for stand out. That made me super valuable in his eyes, the partner's eyes, and the customer's eyes without them even knowing it. All right. So one of the best ways to make yourself look good is to make your boss look good. That's a long story for that, but I like to tell that story. I like to tell stories if you can't tell. All right. So moving forward, thinking that leadership is, one of the biggest misunderstandings in business is that people think that leadership is solely responsible for the success or failure of an organization. Now, we have talked a lot about a good leader, or an organization could be doing well under a good leader. That leader leaves, another one comes in, even if he's far away from the day-to-day grind. It can have an effect, right? So leaders definitely have an effect, all right? But they're not solely responsible. Quality followers are essential, all right? Now, it's a leader's goal, as we talked about with the Theory X and Theory Y. It's a leader's goal to tap into the potential of our followers, all right? But followers have more power, more influence than you might even know. You can have a bad leader and still have a good organization, okay? It's hard, but it can happen. Okay, so let's talk about a few things here. And for all of us who are taking this class on leadership and maybe not have this little, I don't want to use the word fantasy because that sounds kind of fanciful, but we have this vision of ourselves in the future of being a leader of some sort, right? And hopefully this class so far has taught us that it's not all roses. It's not just a bed of roses to be a leader. Being a leader is hard work, but be that as it may, we still desire to do that, right? And some of you might even be more pumped to be leaders after you've learned a little bit about it. Hopefully, so if not, oh well. Um, but once you're a leader, guess what? You still are. You're always a follower. Always a follower. Okay. You could be the CEO of the company. You are the man or the woman in charge. No one underneath or no one above you in the organization. But your customers are above you. All right. The government or other organizations, your competitors, you are following somebody. Okay. Now, some of that is somewhat existential or theoretical or whatever. But the rubber meets the road that most leaders with, well, I don't know why I said where the rubber meets the road, but in the actuality, most leaders are within an organization. They are underneath someone, unless they are the CEO. They are underneath somebody, and even the CEO follows under the stockholders, right? So most leaders are also followers. Okay, and so followership is very, very important. So let's get into it. I've kind of rambled a little bit. Okay. Um, there's a term that one of the things about why we talk about followership and leadership is followers are leaders in their. An effective follower can have attributes of leadership in his or her place. All right, and not just leaders to those. So we have the leader, and then we have followers, and then a follower might have some, what we talked about, some natural authority, natural power, where other people who are supposedly peers might look to that person for leadership, right? So yeah, that in that sense, a follower is a leader. But what people fail to realize very often is we have a leader, we have a follower. That follower, very often, in some aspects, will actually lead the leader, okay, or at least assist the leader in such a way that you are actually doing things, leadership like things, like developing that person, helping that person become better. Okay. Generally thought of tasks that a leader does to a follower, but followers could do to a leader. And that's called managing up. All right. And it's done well. It's a wonderful thing when you have people, and there's resistance on both sides, but when you have people as a leader, when you have people underneath you who are not afraid to manage up, who will develop you, all right, help you develop, take advantage of it. Now, leaders will resist that because, well, I'm in charge. Don't talk to me like that. You got jackasses like that all the time. But it is a very powerful thing when the relationship is correct. Okay, so let's talk about that. All right. So we talked about managing up, and let's. I'm going to give you a textbook definition now. I should have said this earlier, but I'm getting a lot of this information from a textbook that I had in grad school. Where am I? Right. So, I mean, this is a higher level book, but I am kind of trying to keep it where we need to be. Uh, but there's some very good information in there. All right. So the name of the book is Leadership Experience. This is the 7th edition. They do have an 8th edition, but this is by Robert Draft, and it's published. It was published in 2015, so it's a little dated, but it's good information here. Okay, so that's where I got all this stuff. And his Mr. Daft's definition of managing up is consistently and deliberately developing and a meaningful, task-related, mutually respectful relationship with your direct superior. So it's deliberate, it's developmental, it's meaningful, it's task-related, and it's mutually respectful. Okay, so relationship. Now you're building that relationship. Now managing up is building that relationship. You might not have that relationship. You might not have a mutually respectful relationship, but managing up is the goal of it is to reach that area, that point. if you will. Okay, so there's some challenges with managing up, right? You can't just tell your boss what to do. All right, some refuse to be managed up, right? Some refuse to take any advice, any input, anything from the people underneath them. What do we call those guys? Bad leaders, right? Or, I mean, autocratic leaders will tend to have that tendency. But a good autocratic, you can still be a good autocratic leader and still be managed from the bottom a little bit. Allow yourself to be. But if you totally refuse it, not only are you autocratic, you're just not effective. All right. So let's look at some of the challenges. Um, well, a lot of people think it's a challenge to get going because you just don't think it's your place, right? So you're like whatever. So you caught into just status quo, and you don't even really care. Um, but one of the biggest things is when we influence a relationship, we have some control in that relationship. And when you have a boss worker relationship, sometimes or many times, the worker feels like they have no control on the relationship, right? They have no control whatsoever of the relationship, all the power, all the authority. And again, we're talking about the top down, that linear kind of vertical, not linear, but vertical leadership. Uh, you just don't think you have power in the relationship, all right? And we have more power than we think, right? But it is a challenge, right? So you just don't feel you have the power. There might be many other challenges in it where each person's not receptive, uh, time, all kinds of different stuff, availability, or not availability, but level of interaction. I mean, it's hard to manage up when your boss sits in his office, and closes the door and doesn't have an open door policy. It's really hard to manage up that way. All right. So those are some of the challenges. So we're going to talk now about what, this pretty much this whole thing on followership is going to be talking about managing up, but we're going to get back into managing up here in the next video. But right now we're going to talk about some of the things that are important to manage up is what leaders expect from followers. Okay. So, I mean, that's a good place to start, right? What do they expect from us? All right. So what do you expect from a follower? Well, let's talk about what this Mr. Daft has to say for what they expect from us. Okay. They expect a make it happen attitude. All right. Um, it is expected. I mean, as a college teacher, sometimes I expect a can-do attitude from my students, and I don't get it. All right, but I expect it. All right. Now, as a teacher and a leader, if you want to call me that, I have to kind of tweak that in my students, and sometimes they're successful, and sometimes they choose not to be helped, right? But a can-do attitude is expected. All right. Even that, even when you are a theory X or theory Y, if you're theory X and um, if you're hardcore theory X, well, then you're not expecting that, right? You're not expecting can-do attitude, but it's expected in the fact that that's what we want, that's what we desire, that's what we need. That is the goal, to have can-do, make it happen attitudes for followers. All right, so that's number one of the things that they expect from us. Number two is willingness to collaborate. We want followers to not just do their own thing and just to do this and not pay attention to what's around them, right? We want them to interact with each other, collaborate with each other to be successful. I have seen people who are so stubborn, all right, and I have been one, not so stubborn, but I've been stubborn sometimes. But there are people who are so stubborn that they have the can-do attitude to the point that they feel like they're the only one who can do. All right. So it is all on them in their mind, and they do it, and they refuse to ask for help, or ask for direction, to look at what the other people are doing. They do their own thing because, by God, they know that they're the ones that are going to do it right. Again, they're trying to make themselves look good by making others, maybe not making others look bad. They might not even consider others, but they do not want influence from others to muddy them up. I had a big project that I was doing here recently. I was redoing my entire program, our entire program, and it was a huge project. It was a lot of work, and it was all on me. And then someone wanted to help, and I resisted it because I didn't want to have to share the credit. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute now. All right. Credit means nothing. All right. A successful program is much more important. All right. So willingness to collaborate is very important. Motivation to stay up to date. Again, a lot of good followers start out good, but they more so than leaders, followers will come to work, punch a clock, do their thing, keep their heads down, do a good job. But that's where it goes. They do a good job. They keep your head down. They do the work. All right. And when the world around them is changing, they don't really care. They just want to keep on doing what they're doing. But a good follower will be willing to keep up to date. Now, they might not always be effective keeping up to date because it's a lot of work keeping up to date, 100%. But at least being willing, open to keep up to date. That's a very good thing, and it is something that is expected from leaders too on followers. And the next one is the passion to drive your own growth. It is tiring as a leader to have. I used to use the whole, and this was not the most flattering thing to the people I said it about, but I used to say in some aspects of my careers, various careers, that it was tiring being the mother chick, the mother bird, and a bunch of chicks just with their mouths open waiting to be fed. All right. And that's what it feels like a lot. It's like, tell us what to do, tell us what to do, tell us what to do. Right. And I want to be successful. Make me successful. Do you see the error in that statement right there? I want to be successful. Make me successful. Leaders expect you guys, I'm sorry, but they expect followers to be responsible and have the drive for their own growth. Yes, a good leader will help. A good leader will mentor. A good leader will give opportunities. A good leader will back and all that other stuff. But in the end of the day, the leader is not the one driving the other person's growth, and it is the person themselves. And that's what leaders expect. Okay, so those four things as a follower, with the expectation of becoming a leader, you should be working on those things. All right. If you go to work and complain about your leaders, but you don't have a make it happen attitude, you don't want to talk to anybody else, you don't want to collaborate, but you refuse to stay up to date to make changes. We talked about change before in last week, and you want everything given to you. Well, then you have no business demanding a good leader. All right. And I hate to say that, but that's true. If you are the antithesis of all these things, you have no business to demand quality leadership. Okay. So that's a good way to think about it. To expect good leadership. All right. We need to be good followers. And if we don't have good leadership, but we're good followers, we are then managing up. Okay. Because we will influence them. All right, one way or the other. All right. So I think that's where I'm going to end this particular video. I'm going to do one or two more videos. But it's a fascinating topic. Hope you stick with me. And our assignments and our work this week, our discussions are going to be pretty interesting, at least to me. Hopefully to you as well. All right. I'll see you on the flip side.